Akriti can start.
Good evening, everyone. We are delighted to have with us for today's episode of the Career Jumpstart series, Ms. Soma Pandey. She's the head of talent management at Cognizant. For the Career Jumpstart series, the for Industrial Interaction Club is excited to collaborate with the Women in Management at IIM Bangalore. Forum for Industrial Interaction is a student-run business club at IIM Bangalore. Its primary goal is promoting interactions between academia, corporations, and the government to enhance the learning of students at IIM Bangalore. Women in Management as a club promotes gender equality and strives to make IIM Bangalore a more gender-inclusive institution and to ensure that women find their rightful place in academia, industry, and entrepreneurship.
Introducing our guest for today, we are very excited to be kicking off the first series of the year with Soma Pandey. She's a passionate and dynamic HR leader with 15 years of successful global experience driving impact as a strategic business partner, helping organizations achieve their human capital and business objectives. She's currently serving as the head of talent management at Cognizant. Her areas of focus include global HR leadership, strategic HR advisory, trusted business partnership, and organization transformation architecting. She pursued BSc Honors in Chemistry from the Banaras Hindu University, followed by PG Diploma in Personal Management and Industrial Relations from XLRI Jamshedpur. She kickstarted her career at ITC Limited, followed by leadership roles at Accenture, Randstad, and FirstSource. Thank you, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time and being with us here today. Without further ado, let's jump right into the discussion.
Sure, thank you.
Right. So on to our first question. After completing an honors in chemistry, you went on to pursue personal management at XLRI. What was your motivation behind making this transition?
It's a very good question. And if you look at majority people of my generation, I think when we were in school, if you were scoring well, it was an automatic assumption that you would study science and you would either become an engineer or a doctor. And for women especially, those were the only two career options that one had. So I automatically chose science. And then chemistry happened because I was good at chemistry. I did not make it through medical or engineering, but I pursued chemistry. But when I was doing my graduation undergrad in chemistry in Banaras, the advantage was that Banaras Hindu University has a lot of other professional courses. So there's the medical college, there's the engineering college, and you meet a huge student body and people talk of different things. And that's for the first time I heard about something called MBA. Honestly, till my graduation, second or third year, I didn't even know there's something called MBA and there's something called HR that you could do. I come from a family where only my father used to work outside the office. My mom was a homemaker. And career conversations were not something we used to do. It was assumed that you'll either become a doctor or an engineer or you would get married. So that's where I heard that there's something you can do in MBA. Then I read a little bit about it, did some research, talked to people, and I realized that my orientation was towards behavior, towards psychology, and I wanted to try my hand at it. So I appeared for the entrance exam of XLRI. So honestly speaking, there wasn't much thought. It was more of a coincidence that I heard about something, more of a coincidence that I did not get into engineering or medical, and therefore MBA came as an option. Once I reached XLRI, however, I was very glad that I chose this particular field because I really enjoyed myself and I took to it like a fish to water, as they say. Org behavior used to be my favorite subject in college. When I studied labor laws, I mean, it's something that not many people enjoy, but I kind of understood it. I just got it. So I thought it was a good thing that I did not tick the box for finance or marketing or something. Maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed it so much. So honestly, my career, I think, has been one about coincidences. And it started off with with luck of, saying, okay, I'm not going to do anything in chemistry, so might as well try MBA. That's really the honest answer to that question.
That's a very unique transition from chemistry to MBA.
But lots of you guys do it, right? Many of your batchmates, I'm sure, are engineers, and then they're not going to do engineering. They will do possibly investment banking or something. So lots of people do that. But yeah, from a simple BSc to moving to MBA at that time, also it was an interesting profile that I had in college.
Yeah, that's a very unique profile. Thanks for sharing that. The next question is about the changes in the field of HR over the years. You started out your career as an HR manager at ITC Limited, and you're currently serving as the head of talent management at Cognizant. So how, according to you, has the HR domain evolved over the years? And what are the greatest learnings over the course of your career?
Again, fantastic question. I think I was very lucky that from campus I got ITC Limited. ITC is one of the most forward-thinking companies, I think, of all time. Even at that time, it was a company that it had HR folks on the board of the company, which very few companies had in the late 90s, right? That's when I started my career. So we were very lucky. I say we because a batch of us joined as management trainees in ITC. So we were very lucky to be exposed to that kind of HR leadership, the strategic HR thinking even then. But ITC, I was working in a manufacturing setup. So my focus was more around unionized employees and, working on the shop floor. It was more productivity focused. At that time, many of our employees were illiterate, especially in some of the factories that I worked in. So, educating them, adult education, those kinds of things is what HR was more doing. It was more around, discipline, union, and well-being and welfare of the employees. But as time has grown, I think most companies have woken up to the fact that really your people or your human resource is the only differentiator you have. Your product can be copied, your service can be copied, but how your employees behave and how they make your clients feel really is the biggest differentiator you can have as a company. So a lot of companies are now giving a lot of impetus to HR. So that has been good in that the HR now has a voice, it has a seat at the table, and the way we think, the way we are able to influence business decisions is increasingly more impactful. In terms of thought process, also, I feel the value which HR brings is being appreciated a lot more. Earlier, it used to be considered a more administrative function that you will interview the people, you will give them offer letters, you'll bring them on. If there's a disciplinary issue, you will do the inquiries, you will make the notation. If you have to fire somebody, then HR will be at the forefront, you will do the increments. But now it is more about how do we design the workplace to be more employee friendly? How do we design careers? How do we have conversations around talent development? Those kind of conversations are happening a lot more. And HR is adding tangible value in terms of upskilling the people, reskilling employees whose skills are becoming redundant, and how the world is changing with technology coming in. That becomes a very big and important thing. That if you have thousands of employees and the skill that they were used to is going away and a new skill is coming, how do you make sure that those people transition? So massive changes in how HR is viewed and the kind of impact HR can have. And definitely it's great days to be in HR today because it definitely is considered as a key function. So if you look at most boards, you will have a full-time, like a CFO would be part of the board, and then the HR person would usually be part of the board as well, along with the CEO. So these three functions now are taking a very key role at the board table, at the decision-making table. So I think HR has changed, and all for the best.
Yeah, I think, and you're completely right about that. I think none of us can imagine a workplace now without a very active HR function, right from our, onboarding into the organization, right to the exit. So I think, of course, you have a point right there. HR as a domain is on the rise. On to a more, a little bit of a challenging question. What would you consider to be your, biggest professional challenge so far, and how did you overcome that, and what kind of learnings would you impart to, the audiences from that instance?
If I look at the overall career I've had, I think I've been very lucky, and the challenges I have faced have been such that any career would face that, or any professional would face that, and that you would overcome. But one of the things I would like to talk about at this point would be the fact that I took a career break. So for me, coming back into the workforce after a career break was a big challenge. So like you mentioned, that I started off my career in a FMCG company, right? It was on the shop floor in ITC, in the cigarette division. And at that time, this was the late 90s. So Infosys, etc., were just coming up. My exposure to the IT services and understanding of how information technology would change our lives was very, very low 25 years ago. So I was not very aware of what's happening in the software domain, etc. I was happily working in my job in the FMCG company, and that's when I got married. And I took a break because my husband was moving out of the country on a project, and he was part of the IT industry. So we moved out of the country, and I stopped working. Then, next 5 years, I was more focused on my family. And then I wanted to come back to work. So a 5 year break. So I had a 5 year career and then 5 year break. So I was like, I was a 35-year-old woman and I was looking to come back and I had only 5 years of experience. So it was a very peculiar situation. The recruiters didn't know where to position me. And the only jobs at the time were in the IT sector. And I didn't know anything about the IT sector. And one thing I believe as an HR person, until you know the industry, until you know what the business does, you will not succeed. So HR cannot work in a silo or in an ivory tower to say, HR in FMCG is the same as HR in manufacturing and the same in IT. It is not. You have to know the business. So at that time, I think I was scared. I was worried that how will I land a job? I don't know anything about IT. But thankfully, by then, we had started using Yahoo and, Microsoft had come up with we didn't have laptops. I don't know if you realize at that time, we had my first laptop we bought in 2000. So, even scrolling and searching, I wasn't very comfortable. I used to worry if I press the wrong button, what will happen. But in that case, I was able to, not Google, but I searched because Google hadn't been launched by then. So I searched a lot about how the industry works, what the software development cycle is, how sales are made, how delivery is made, how quality is managed, with the different roles, blah, blah, blah. And that's how then I was able to manage to land up my first job. So one was the fact that I made the effort to learn. That's how I overcame the challenge. The other was to network. So I shamelessly used my XLRI card. Wherever I went, I would, look for any XLRI alumni and then reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. I want to come back. Can you help me? So I think those are the two things that I did, which helped me. And that realize that, you may not know things, and then make sure that you research and invest the time and effort in learning something, and then be willing to put yourself out there and show some confidence and push for a job. Otherwise it becomes difficult. So for me, that was the biggest challenge, finding my way back into the corporate sector and in a different industry than what I was used to.
It's great that you had the motivation to learn about an industry without any prior knowledge. Really appreciate it. So then you had briefly mentioned team building at the apex of a company. So what do you think are the skills instrumental in building an effective leadership team in a corporate? And what are the techniques employed by you towards this goal?
How to build a leadership team?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the definition of leadership itself is changing, and it is very dependent on the context of the company that you're working for. Like I said, HR is not the same in different sectors. Similarly, leadership cannot be the same. The culture of a company determines what kind of a leader will succeed, right? So if it is a highly relationship oriented company, then a leader who works with influence would more succeed. If it is a highly process oriented company, then you need a person who enjoys processes and who sticks to the process, or who's able to influence process thinking and create change like that. So you have to be very aware of the context of the company that you're working in. So there is no universal answer to what are the leadership skills that would work. But I can draw from that and say one of the biggest leadership skill is contextual understanding. To be aware of where you are located, what is required in that particular context, and to be able to lead in that context. So contextual understanding, a leader should be very, very self-aware of what are my strengths and weaknesses, and aware of the context. As in, how am I going to fit into this larger picture and how I'm going to be able to influence. So the contextual understanding and self-understanding are extremely critical. I think the third thing we are finding more and more is the person's ability to look forward and have a growth mindset. As we age, many of us get stuck that, I have always done it this way and, I've come this far, means if I continue doing it this way, I will keep on succeeding. But that is not the case anymore. Things are changing so fast. You cannot afford to get stuck. So a leader should have a growth mindset, and they should have the ability to look forward and say, okay, today I know this, but it may not be relevant. What more do I need to know? And be willing to learn from anybody. Even if it's a junior person in your company who knows something that you don't know, then you should be willing to have that conversation and try and learn. So read a lot. They should invest in themselves, read, learn, attend trainings, talk to people, but a growth mindset is extremely important. And I think one more thing I would put out there is empathy. I think especially after the pandemic, we've realized that a person cannot be separated from their emotions or their family, right? Everybody, family or personal context, right? That we are whole human beings, and if one thing is out of balance, we cannot work as productively, right? So a leader should be able to understand that how do I make sure that my professional outcomes and the productivity that I'm demanding from my people is not coming at the cost of their mental health or their family or their personal. So an empathetic leader would be someone that I would look for. So those would be the kind of things that I look at for a leadership person in today's day and age, that you should be extremely self-aware. You should be extremely good at picking up the cues in the context and in the surrounding that you're operating in. You should have a growth mindset. Like I didn't know anything about the industry, the IT industry, and then if you see my job trajectory from IT, then I moved to a larger IT company. Then I moved to an HR services industry. Then I moved to a BPO, and I'm back into an IT. And every industry is different, so you should continuously be able to challenge yourself and learn. So the growth mindset, and finally, I would say empathy, and the ability to express your own emotions without getting sucked into it and making it dysfunctional, but an ability to appreciate emotions in yourself and in others, an ability to lead with a holistic view around empathy and wellness and work-life balance.
Right, I think, and the context that you gave about the pandemic, I think that really hits home, because I think a lot of us were working at a time when, it was very difficult to even imagine how to work, and to kind of carry that emotional burden and the professional burden, I think was difficult on a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings me to, the next part of the discussion. I mean, we live in a corporate world nowadays where, performance and high performance is like, the yardstick for everybody. And every kind of company wants to drive high performance within their employees. And what I wanted to ask was, what strategies would you employ to drive such employee engagement that results in high performance in outcomes?
Yeah, I like how we HR people talk a lot of jargon. It's not that difficult. Actually, human beings are very simple. What do people want? People want a job where they feel safe and they feel that they are utilizing their capability, and they feel recognized, and they feel that they are making a difference, and they're being recognized for it. So to create an engaging workplace, or to create a workplace which drives high performance, you have to start with the purpose. You'll read a lot about how many CEOs are now saying that purpose and profit are equally important. Earlier, you would find that the leadership conversations, or the boardroom conversations, or the conversations when they declare their results onto the street and all of that, would be about shareholder value returns, right? But a lot of them are now talking about sustainability. They're talking about employee welfare and all of that. So the first thing is to give your employees a purpose. You have to have a company where people feel that they are doing something. Now, at a junior level, you do possibly kind of work which doesn't directly impact something, but It is part of a larger jigsaw puzzle. So HR and leaders should be able to translate to a person that what you're doing is important, and it is important because this X leads to Y and Y leads to Z, and that is the ultimate purpose of our company, why we exist. And that purpose cannot just be we want to make tons of money. It works for some personality types that they are very happy to have a very transactional oriented thing that, okay, if this gives me a lot of money, I'm happy to do that. But most companies are now looking at, okay, how do I impact things? So for example, Cognizant serves certain clients who are in the healthcare space. So the work that we do helps vaccines to come out faster. Or we work for airlines. So the work that we do makes air travel safer, for example. So that kind of a storyline to understand that what you're doing today, it might look like you're doing just a code, but the code is ultimately going to feed into something which will have a larger impact in the world out there, and which is a positive thing. So giving employees a purpose is extremely important. The second thing is allowing people to build skills and mastery and do what they love and they're good at is very important. So finding the right role and person fit, and making sure that people see the opportunities that are available for them to either go for a training or take on a stretch role, or have a line of sight to, okay, that's where my career wants to, I mean, I want to go in my career to that A point. Today I'm sitting at C, how do I get there? So having that career path visible to them, that if you go from this job to this job, and then you take this training, and then you do this assignment, then you can reach there. Those are the kind of things that HR can do to build a space of high engagement, high performance. So allowing people to build their mastery, as it's called, it should be, they can become a master of what they do and continue to grow. And finally, a sense of, recognition and belonging, that nowadays you must be hearing about the great resignation, that everybody is leaving their jobs, and companies are fighting over talent, and everybody is giving big hikes. You go from one company to the other, you get 30%, 40%, 100% hike. While money is a big driver, I think more than money at a certain level. Once your money, you must have read about Maslow's hierarchy. Right? Once your need for money to a large extent is met, recognition comes into play. You like to be known, you like to be thanked, you like to be given visibility to say that this person did this and this had this impact, and that's a great job done. So recognition and the feeling that I matter in this place, that's very important. So building that culture of constantly celebrating whatever a person is doing some recognition. So those would be the things that one would look at building within an environment or culture, which will drive engagement and which will drive high performance.
Taking ahead this thought on high performance and employee engagement, interpersonal skills are very imperative in building a successful career in the management field, especially so for the HR domain, I believe. So what do you think our educational system is lacking in building interpersonal skills among students?
That you should tell me, no? You guys are in the system. I've been out of the system for quarter of a century now. I think things are improving. I mean, my kids are now studying, and I find that there is more focus on doing internships, right? You go out, and even if it's an unpaid internship, go and work in an office and see how things are happening, or go or do some community service, work with an NGO. I think that's a very good trend. When I was in college or school, I think the way we were taught to think was very in a straight line, that this is what the textbook says, learn this and then reproduce it in the exams, you will get good marks, and that was considered to be a mark of intelligence. Now there are many types of intelligences. It's taken me a long time to learn that, but just and I'm Bangalore guys, you guys are all achievers in your own right? That you must have done really well in school, and then you must have scored really well in the entrance, and that's why you're here. But this is not the only kind of intelligence that matters in life and in professions as well, right? And more and more now, life and profession are merging. I find so many of the younger people, they are not looking for like long-term jobs, right? They'll come, they'll do and they'll take a break, go do parasailing, come back after 6 months, then they want to do another job, which is fantastic, I think. But coming back to your question, so I think the school system used to be a lot about a single type of intelligence, which is, you should know math, you should know language, you should know reading, writing, arithmetic, or whatever. And teacher's word is the last, and there was very little leeway for us to think ourselves. But I think more and more, when you do project work, for example, which was not something we did, we were all very individualistic. You studied yourself, you go and take the exam. But when we do project works, then you have to negotiate with each other. Somebody emerges as the leader, somebody will be slacking, then the group has to take a call on how to either bring back that individual or let them go and then go talk to the teacher and get a different kind of a thing. So I think talking and working in groups is what's usually missing until a much senior level. I think the first time I did it was in MBA, right? When you after your undergrad, you come into PG, and that's when you start working in groups and doing case studies and stuff. I think if that can be encouraged more, getting the kids out of the classroom to do more internship kind of work, and then within the classroom also doing more group work would really help in building the interpersonal skills, which today I feel it's improving, but I think more can be done around that. Because there are very few situations in the corporate world or in life where a textbook will help you, no matter what you have studied. It's human relations, it's empathy, it's understanding what the other person is going through, understanding what you yourself are going through in that moment and how your thought process is being impacted by that emotion. That will help you solve the problems that you usually face. Of course, you need some skills and some basic grounding in some theory. But beyond that, it's a lot about personality and, like you said, interpersonal skills.
Right. I think that should really help like a wide spectrum of people who would, no doubt be listening to this talk or would be listening to this talk later on, to kind of develop the right set of skills, and I think go out there and put themselves out there and, function in groups already so that, they kind of get an early jump start in life, so to speak. Well, I think for a final question, this is going to be a more, universal question. As a manager and as a successful woman in management, what would be your advice for women who are pursuing or wanting to join the HR domain at this point in time?
I don't think my advice would be very different either for men or women or HR domain or any other domain. I think when you want to come into corporate, you have to come in with a very open mind. I think that's what I always tell students or young people who are starting out. That don't come in with your mind made up about what your career is going to be like. Trust me, you don't know what your career is going to be like. Irrespective of how focused you are and how clear you are, things happen in life, and be open to that. The more rigid you are, the harder it will hit you when things don't go your way. And increasingly, I'm finding that life is more about a marathon. It is not a sprint. And to young people, it is my heartfelt advice that don't run too hard. It's okay to run at a pace that works for you. Once you reach the end goal that you're thinking, even then you may not find the happiness you think you will find. So find happiness in the process. Enjoy the moment you're in and do what is happening now. Do it well and do it with an open mind, right? So that's my biggest advice, that yes, if there is a job opening and you've applied for it, make sure that the skills you have match up to it. Showcase those skills well, right? When someone asks you what are your strengths, don't be shy. They're asking you your strengths, so tell them your strengths and tell them why you believe they are your strengths, right? You give them examples that I believe I'm a good team player because, during college I did this, or in this project work it wasn't going well and I was able to do that. Whatever your story is, so give examples. If you say I'm very good at analytical thinking, then you can talk about some problem solving that you did. So when you're applying for a job, make sure that you have the right skills and you're able to showcase them. That's one thing. Then once you're inside a company and you are asked to do a job which doesn't necessarily align with what you thought you have to do, be a game player. And if you're saying yes to that job, do it with your best effort, right? There is no rocket science unless you work for, Baba Atomic Research Center or NASA or something. It is not rocket science. It is literally, it is corporate. What you are doing can be learned, can be done well by anyone who has basic intellect and basic skills, right? So say yes, and that will get you a lot of brownie points. The impression you make or the perception about you will spread in the company, and you will get lots more good opportunities if you pitch in at the time when you're being asked to pitch in, that, hey, I have this project, nobody's taking it, will you take it? If you say yes, you have a jump start. So say yes to requests from the company or your employer or your boss, even if it doesn't completely align with you, and then give it your best. So align your skills, sell your skills, say yes, don't be rigid. And another thing I would say is network, right? Try and build your network. And it doesn't have to be something artificial that you go out with a visiting card and you start giving people visiting cards and taking visiting cards. That's important. But more important is the connect you're making with people. And networking is about making that connection irrespective of whether you need them right now or not, right? Or they need you or not. So make a genuine connection with people. And then when you have a need, feel absolutely comfortable to reach out. Most people like to help other people. Put yourself in someone's shoes, right? If someone reached out to you, would you help or not? Most cases you will say, yes, of course. What's the harm in helping someone? I would love to help someone. Similarly, other people are also thinking. So if you need something, reach out. Because I'm guaranteeing you there will come a time where you will be able to help them back. If not them, then somebody they want to put forward or something, you'll be able to help. So build that network, invest in that network without feeling conscious, without making it mechanical. Make a genuine effort to get to know more and more people, and make sure that you leave a good impression on them by like I said, having that attitude of doing your best in the moment. And this is true in any job, and irrespective of gender. But since you asked me the women in management question, something needs to be said about that. I mean, even though we want to believe that genders are equal and it's a question of providing the right opportunities, I think women, because of the way society is, because of the way media portrays gender roles, there are some things that women are doing. They used to do in my generation. I'm sure they are still doing in your generation, is holding them back. The biggest part of that is self-criticism. So women typically, right from how we look to how fat we are, you will not find a man criticize their body as much as a woman would. Similarly, typically, and again, I'm generalizing, but that is what research says, that typically women are more self-critical in every aspect of their lives, right? So professionally, try not to do that, because you have to be your own best advocate. And the word advocate is what I'm using. I'm not saying salesperson, because you can't oversell yourself also. That also is something that doesn't sit well with senior people, right? So you have to advocate, and advocacy comes from a genuine space that I really know this. And if you know that I know, you will give me a job which I will be able to do really well. Therefore, both of us will benefit. So advocacy is different from selling yourself. So advocate for yourself. Don't judge yourself too harshly. There is research that shows that even if a woman is 90% ready for the next job, she will not put herself forward for it. She will think, okay, maybe I should be 100%, maybe I should be 105% before I apply. What if I don't get selected? What if I fail? Those kind of thought process does not help. And there is enough and more evidence out there which says that people who overestimate their skills actually have better careers. Because if you're underestimating, you won't even apply for those jobs which require that skill, right? So don't overestimate, but at least have a fair assessment. And if you don't know how well you're doing, then ask for feedback. Again, this is true for both men and women. Ask for feedback, so genuinely listen to feedback and see what you can do about it. But don't let feedback bog you down. Sometimes we listen something harsh about ourselves, it bogs us down. That's also not necessary. You know yourself best. The person who's giving you feedback has seen an aspect of you for which they're giving you feedback, and you should absolutely have your filters on which part you're going to accept and which part you're not going to accept. So get feedback, have a realistic view of your skills and your capabilities, and don't undersell yourself or don't shortchange yourself by being self-critical. I think that would be the biggest thing I would leave for the women out there. But I mean, my son is in college now, so I keep thinking about how much pressure there is on the students. And even though your parents or society around you might be supportive to say it doesn't matter, do how much you can, you guys have to believe that you have at least 45-50 years of work ahead of you. There is no need to get overly obsessed about success right now. Be successful in what you're doing today. Don't stress about the future. Life is good, world is a kind place, and we all make up the world. So have that calmness in your mind that if this doesn't work out, something else will. Your careers will go through change. I'm sure you've read the research which says that the generation which is coming into the workforce now, you will have at least 4 distinct careers in your life, not 4 job changes. But you could start with being a teacher, end with being a dancer, or you could start with being a scientist, end up being a writer, or so it is not the next 40 years in one chunk. It's going to be chunks of 5-10 years. So have that open mind and be happy and just be chilled. That's very, very important.
That's a very systematically framed answer. You brought in several perspectives. Thanks a lot. That brings us to the end of our discussion. Thank you, ma'am, for the very insightful session. I'm sure the takeaways are manifold from the session, especially on how to develop soft skills, leadership, team building, driving employee engagement, etc. And all the answers were as detailed as it could be. This series will be really motivating to young aspirants wanting to make it big in the field of human resource management. It was really, really great having you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. All the very best to everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.